Okay, so have you ever read something like a historical document or a letter and it just completely blows your mind?
Oh, absolutely. Happens all the time. What are we talking about today?
It's this letter from a bishop named Lucifer. Well, Bishop Lucifer of Cagliari, to be precise.
Okay, Lucifer. Intriguing name for a bishop, to say the least. What this Lucifer fellow do?
Well, he wrote this scathing letter to Emperor Constantius II, and I mean scathing, like he really goes there.
Wow, taking on an emperor. That takes some guts, especially
Plus.
back then. We talk about the 4th century, right? Christianity is still finding its footing. Emperors are practically considered demigods. What was he thinking?
Exactly. And that's what's so fascinating about this letter. It gives us this incredible window into the religious tensions of the time. See, there was this big debate raging within Christianity about the nature of Jesus.
Right, you've got the whole Arianism versus Nicene Christianity thing going on. Not exactly small potatoes.
And Constantius, let's just say he was on the wrong side of the theological tracks, at least according to Lucifer.
Ah, so this wasn't just a friendly theological debate. This was personal.
Oh, absolutely. Lucifer pulls no punches. He basically accuses Constantius of leading the empire astray with his support of Arianism.
Which, for Lucifer, was a direct threat to the very soul of Christianity. So how does he call out an emperor? You can't exactly send a strongly worded tweet.
He gets biblical, and I mean really biblical. Lucifer basically throws down a gauntlet of Old Testament kings, figures like Gideon, Saul, Jeroboam, Solomon, all these cautionary tales about what happens when leaders stray from the path of righteousness.
Oh, I see where this is going. He's using these figures as a kind of mirror, showing Constantius what happens when power and faith collide.
Yeah.
And it doesn't end well.
Exactly. And he starts with a real doozy Gideon. You know the story, right? The underdog chosen by God to lead the Israelites, the miraculous victory over the Midianites.
Oh, yeah, classic David and Goliath kind of stuff. Except it's Gideon and, well, a whole lot of Midianites. But I'm guessing it doesn't end with everyone singing Kumbaya.
Not quite, because Gideon, despite all this divine favor, lets it go to his head. He goes from this humble leader to, well, he starts making some questionable choices.
The allure of power.
Yeah.
Right, it's a tale as old as time. What did he do?
He takes all the gold jewelry from the spoils of war, earrings and stuff, and has the Israelites melt it down to create this ephod. It's basically a priestly garment.
Okay, a little extravagant, but not necessarily evil, right? What's the big deal?
It becomes this object of veneration, almost like an idol. And that's the whole point. Lucifer's driving home to Constantius. He's saying, hey, remember who you're supposed to be worshiping here.
It's like Gideon forgets who gave him the victory in the first place. He gets so caught up in the trappings of power that he loses sight of the bigger picture. And Lucifer's warning Constantius, don't make the same mistake.
And just like that, bam, we're on to King Saul. Chosen by God, initially successful, but then things take a turn for the worse.
Pride gets the better of him.
You could say that. Disobeying God's direct orders, clinging to power, the whole shebang. But there's this one gut-wrenching moment that always gets me. Samuel, the prophet, he confronts Saul about his disobedience, and you can just hear the heartbreak in his voice when he tells Saul that God regrets making him king.
Ouch. That's got to sting.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just a personal failing, right? Saul's choices had consequences for the entire kingdom.
Exactly. But here's what I find interesting. For all the drama, Lucifer emphasizes God's patience with these flawed kings. Like, why all the divine patience? If I were calling the shots, there might be a little more smiting going on.
That's a great question, and it gets to the heart of Lucifer's strategy. See, he's using divine patience as a double-edged sword. It's not an endorsement of bad behavior. It's about God's mercy, offering a chance for repentance. He's basically saying to Constantius, look, God's been patient with you, but don't mistake that for approval. You've got time to turn things around, but that window of opportunity, it's not going to stay open forever.
So we've got Gideon kind of forgetting where he came from and Saul breaking hearts all over the place. And Lucifer's using them as examples for Constantius. Like, hey, buddy, take a look at what not to do.
It's a bold move. He's not just critiquing Constantius's theology. He's questioning his leadership, his judgment.
And just to make sure Constantius gets the point, he throws in another doozy Jeroboam.
Ah, Jeroboam. Now, there's a leader who really knew how to miss the mark. Talk about going off script.
Yeah, he pretty much threw the whole one God, one worship playbook out the window.
The golden calves, right? Not exactly subtle.
Not at all. It's like, hey, Israelites, remember that whole desert wandering thing? The whole no worshiping other gods, especially golden ones thing? Yeah, forget all that.
It's like he learned nothing from history.
And the irony is, for someone trying to create his own religious system, you'd think he'd be a bit more confident, but then you've got that story about his hand shriveling up when he tries to silence a prophet.
Oh yeah, that's a classic divine smackdown right there. But remember, it's not really about the physical hand. It's about spiritual withering, the emptiness that comes from rejecting God.
Right, a metaphorical shriveled hand. Got it. But then, Lucifer switches gears completely. Solomon. I mean, we're talking about the wisest king ever. What's he doing in this lineup?
That's the point, isn't it? Lucifer's showing that even the wisest, the most blessed, can stumble. Solomon, despite his close relationship with God, let his guard down.
You're talking about all those foreign wives, right?
Exactly. And they're gods. Solomon starts building temples to please them, compromises his beliefs, and ends up leading his people astray.
Talk about a cautionary tale. It reminds me of that saying, the sins of the father.
And the sons.
Mhm.
And the whole kingdom. Exactly.
Yeah.
Lucifer is showing Constantius that his actions have ripple effects. They don't just impact him, they impact everyone he leads.
So it's not just about saving his own soul, it's about the soul of the empire. It's a heavy burden for anyone to carry, but especially for a leader with that much power. Okay, so we've covered kings being seduced by power, kings making bad choices, even kings being a little too flexible with their faith. But Lucifer's saving his most intense comparisons for last, right?
Definitely. He's building to a climax, and that's where Ahab and Manasseh come in. And trust me, these two make the previous kings look like amateurs.
All right, you've got my attention. Let's start with Ahab. Paint me a picture of what earned him such a prominent spot on Lucifer's naughty list.
Imagine a king who not only embraces other gods, but actively tries to shut down anyone who worships the true God. That's Ahab. And it gets worse. He marries this Phoenician princess, Jezebel, who's obsessed with promoting Baal worship.
Sounds like a match made somewhere other than heaven.
Exactly. And together they become this unstoppable force of religious corruption. They're tearing down altars, persecuting prophets, basically turning the kingdom upside down.
Talk about a spiritual crisis. But I'm sensing there's a particular story Lucifer uses to really ram the point home. What's Ahab's biggest blunder?
Okay, so picture this. Ahab's about to go into battle, and this prophet, Micaiah, gives him a warning. Straight up tells him it's going to be a disaster.
Sounds like good advice to me.
You'd think. But does Ahab listen to the guy who's clearly hearing from God? Nope. He chooses to listen to his posse of yes-men prophets who are telling him what he wants to hear.
Oof, I've been there. Surrounding yourself with people who just tell you what you want to hear never ends well.
And that's exactly what Lucifer's trying to get through to Constantius. He's like, hello, are you listening to anyone who challenges you, anyone who will help you find the truth? Or are you just surrounding yourself with a bunch of theological yes-men who tell you what you want to hear?
That's a tough question. But even if Ahab was consistently bad, at least he was consistent. Manasseh, that's a whole other level of messed up child sacrifice, sorcery, you name it. Why even go there? It seems like comparing apples and oranges.
But Manasseh's story, as dark as it is, offers something incredibly powerful. The possibility of redemption.
Wait, even after all that, there's still hope.
That's the point. Manasseh, despite all the terrible things he did, eventually sees the light. He repents, turns back to God, and experiences true forgiveness and restoration.
Okay, so even Manasseh gets a second chance. That's pretty amazing considering.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Manasseh's story so essential to Lucifer's message. He's showing Constantius that no matter how far you stray, it's never too late to change, that God's mercy and forgiveness are always available.
So we've gone from Gideon to Saul to Jeroboam to Solomon, ending with Ahab and Manasseh, each one a cautionary tale, but also, in a way, a story about hope and second chances. Makes you think, if Lucifer were sending this letter today, who would be on his list of kings?
Now that's the question, isn't it? It makes you realize these struggles, the temptations of power, the dangers of pride, the allure of having people tell you what you want to hear. They're not just ancient history, they're timeless.
It's kind of like looking in a mirror when you think about it. We may not be emperors, but we all face those same choices in our lives.
The question is, which path will we choose?
And that's something for all of us to ponder. Until next time.